Camera's rolling. And camera's rolling. Oh, you know what? Hang on. Camera's rolling. Okay, maintenant.
Okay, I'm Jeanne d'Arc, Nicknair. I'm the 11th of 12 kids, and my birthday is July 1634. And I was born here in Eagle Lake, Maine, from Fred and Cecile.
Okay. Now, maintenant, I just wanted to, I don't know, what do you do for a living right now?
Right now I do what they call outreach for the poor in Lewiston, Maine. And I serve 4 churches. It's for the Catholic Church. There's St. Peter and Paul, where I reside. There's St. Joseph's Church, St. Patrick's, and Holy Family Church. And I have, in my index, I have over 300 people that come to see us. It's mostly a pantry that we run. And besides that, we try to help them with their electricity, with their rent, with gas, with anything that they really need. And we have vouchers for a clothing store, and we also give them vouchers for food.
And what were you doing before that?
Before that, I was in Africa. And I was a nurse midwife, and I worked in the villages for 34 years, which were the greatest years of my life.
And why were they the greatest years of your life?
Because to me it was something that I felt that I was called to do. To be in the villages with the people, trying to teach them health schemes and health habits. And I just love those children.
Now, what were some of your duties out there when you were in Africa with that?
When I first went to Africa, we had a general hospital, and we had orphans. We had 40 orphans. And I was in charge of the outpatients, which is like a clinic. And there I learned a lot of things I'd never done in my life, like pulling teeth and giving anesthesia and doing x-rays and lab work. But you learn, you teach yourself. And even sometimes we didn't have a doctor for that hospital. So we had to play the doctor. And that was a very big responsibility.
What was the hardest thing that you did out there?
I think the anesthesia was the worst thing. I was praying forever because I was so afraid to lose a patient. But I'm sure with the help of God, nobody died.
When you were a missionary out in Africa, what were the conditions that you were in, that you lived in?
Well, we had a house that was it was all right. It was a nice, it was a house for 4 people, and we were 10 people in there. So we took turns. Those who were on night duty took our beds when they came in off duty, and somebody had to be on duty all the time because we had no doctors. And sometimes we were up all night for surgery or whatever it was. And but it was a nice little community. The food was hard to get used to in the beginning.
What kind of stuff were you eating?
Oh. Well, we had gardens, so that we could try some of our own vegetables. But they're not very strong vegetables except cabbage, tomatoes. Onions are very hard to grow there, so we didn't have many onions. And we had meat. We had chicken for our big holidays. Or we had fish. They had a lot of nice fish. And beef we saw very, very seldom. But we had eggs and goat meat. And there's a few little local things that you had to get used to, like mice eating mice and flying ants, but they're good. Once you get to eat them and get used to it, it's nice. We fry them or we broil them, but and we wanted to be like the Africans because we had African sisters with us too. Finally, and so we didn't want to, show that we needed something different from them.
When you were saying you were like the Africans, besides the eating habits, what other things did you do in order to assimilate?
We learned their dances, which they love to dance with the drums, and the little ones hear a drum and they start dancing right away. And so we did the same.
What kind of dances was it?
Oh, it's a lot of shake, shake, shake.
You want to show it to us?
No. But we felt that we wanted to be part and parcel of them as much as we could. And of course we had to learn the language, which is like a whole different ballgame. For instance, if you want to say good morning, how are you? You say Moni, Moni Buenji. And you have to sing it. You sing their language.
Now when you were out there, now you had to go out in the field quite a bit too. Could you talk about some of your
We did. We had clinics because they had to walk 10, 15 miles. And what used to upset us is you would see a mother coming with a very high fever with malaria. She'd have a baby on her back and maybe walking with two, and they were just as sick as she was. And they'd arrive and they'd just about collapse. And so we decided it would be nice if we could go clinics into the outskirts so they wouldn't have to walk so far. The furthest we went was 25 miles. But we'd have to be careful. During the rainy season, sometimes we could not go. And if we'd get stuck, which we did, the kids from all over would come and help us to push. And they'd love to be spattered by mud. The dirtier, the better. In fact, we had a clinic 6 miles away, which we had a maternity there. We had under 5 clinics for the children. And then we finally opened rehab center, which was for children who were very, very sick and they needed special food, special care. And they'd stay there with their mum for, a month, it depends. And then we'd give them proper food. We had wheat meals that they could fill in. We tried to get fish for them, or proteins, mostly proteins. And one day we were going, we said we should not go, but we knew it was a big, and they walk in the rain, it doesn't matter. So we got there, me and his sister, an older sister. Her name was Sister Catherine Roy from Frenchville. She was a real missionary. And she says, we're going to go, because I have 2 little ones, I really make sure that. And we went about 3 miles and we got stuck so much in the mud. So I said, well, you drive and I'll push. Well, I started pushing with the kids, and I fell flat in the mud with my white uniform, and the kids were laughing. They had the best time. So then when we got to the bridge, we had to pass the bridge, the water was about 4 feet high, so we could move. So we started singing with the little kids around. It was health songs to teach them what foods to eat, how to clean. We sang it in their language.
Could you sing one of those songs?
Oh boy, I'm afraid I've forgotten a lot of them. Let me think. It's the same words all the time. Okay. Le rotitsuka ti samba di potiske tu pilatu ataku yimba di kudia maka maka nyama maka maka chimanga tiku sangalala tiku sangalala.
Now, what was the interpretation of that song?
The thing is really, if I get up every morning and I clean myself, they don't say wash, they clean themselves, and that if they can go and fix a garden and have some vegetables. And then maybe have a few chickens so that they can eat, they don't, so that they can have something to fill their bodies and give them strength. And then we can really rejoice and dance and be happy.
So you had a lot of instructional songs.
Oh yes, that's the way we taught them. Because they love to dance and they love to sing and they love to, this is their life. Because they don't have any other entertainments. So we sang with them and we danced with them, and then the kids singing. You hear them in the village when they tend their goats, or they have goats. Because the goats cut the grass also. They eat all the grass and they don't have the hard grass around the house for the animals to come. And
Okay, and recording.
So that's the way we used to teach them their health lessons. Because they can't just sit there and listen. They have to do something. So we have to do the motions with them, and they enjoy it.
Now, who figured out that teaching program? Was it you, or was it something that was already instilled?
Well, the government realized that we can talk all we want, but they don't absorb it. They can't sit still enough, because they're always on the go. And so we started these clinics. I was there about 6 years when we started them, because we weren't reaching anything. We weren't teaching them anything. We were just work. So, and then we started the vaccinations then at the same time. And the best place was to go in the villages because they didn't have to walk so far. And what we did, we just put words together to teach them how to take care of their bodies, what type of foods to eat, and we had posters to show them. But they fell asleep. Those posters meant nothing to them. Because they're not educated. The majority of them were not educated whatsoever. And then what we did, because when we went to these villages, especially to do the clinics, we have hundreds of them. And we could only do it in the morning because the afternoon we went to another village. So we decided and we have to weigh them, see if they're gaining or if they're not. And so we put a fish scale and made some pants with long suspenders. We just hang them on the scale so we could weigh them. And some of the babies thought it was a swing, they didn't want to get off. They would swing themselves. So they enjoyed it. They thought it was like a game for them. But we had to and then we had cards for each one. We started by sending the cards with them for their vaccinations and their scales, see how they were gaining. But they did lose them. Or they'd light fires with them because they didn't have any papers to light their fires with. So we didn't know where the vaccines were. We didn't know what they had no idea what they were getting. So then we started keeping them, which took much longer when they came. We had to find their cards and they changed their names. They forget what name they had. It was a bit frustrating. And you didn't want to give them 3 polios and 4.
Could you talk to me, when you were working out there, did you have any run-ins with the government about what you guys did? Or did you guys always work around them? Or were there any situations that you had to deal with?
Yes, because the people liked to come to our clinics. And first of all, we thought they were very big when we had 200. But in the government, there are thousands of them. And the people get tired working also, and then they get frustrated. And sometimes the things that we got from the government was very scarce. So we had to buy stuff like rice and, proteins. We tried to try and get something for them. But the government couldn't afford it. The staff would eat it. So, and we took care of them. And they knew we loved them. But they had two big crowds in the government. I must say, when we started to give especially with the AIDS patients, I found it very hard to get stuff from the government because they were giving it to their army. They were giving, like if we got maize, corn, big bags of corn, we could see them giving them to their soldiers, giving the food to their own personnel. And I fought with them for a while, but then you saw you couldn't get anywhere. So that was very frustrating, yes.
Yeah, because your country was run by a dictator, right?
That's right. We had a dictator for 30 years that I was there.
What was his name?
Kamuzu Banda.
Now, did you ever meet Kabuzuala?
I didn't want to meet him. I think I was spit in their face. No, I was not very happy with them, but we said we're going to do our little bit and try to teach them things. In fact, a few of the cabinet members of the Republic, the Freedom government, came from our schools. We had so the brothers at a college, and quite a few of them come from there.
Now, you started off with the leprosy clinic, right?
When I first went to Malawi, I went to a general hospital, and it was right in the village, and it was hard of access, but more people came there than especially if they wanted to be treated, they had to pay. If they paid $1 a day, so we had to have something for them. And if they were in the private room, they paid $5, which was, but these were the officials. They used to come to our hospital to be treated. But we had an operating room, we had x-ray, we had lab, it was just miniature. We had maternity, we had everything. I was there for 12 years.
Now, Mata, when you first went there,
yeah,
and you had to deal with this,
yeah.
I'm not talking about all your experiences now, but your first reaction when you had to deal with leprosy, how would you feel?
I was a little bit afraid until I read about it. And what we saw was, in a village, there may have been 10 people, and then in another village there was just a few, and the mother had it, but the children didn't have it, the husband didn't have it, so we realized it was not as contagious as we thought it was. We don't know everything about it, and I don't think we ever will. But I think what affected us most were the children. What they had, kwashiorkor, it's a lack of protein. And then marasmus is starvation. And the kwashiorkor, they swell, and their little feet all blister up. And they have big bellies. And then the marasmus, it's starvation, they're just skin and bones. I think this was my biggest desire to try and do something about that.
Okay, I'm going to stop. And camera is, let's talk about the Peace Corps, Mata.
Okay.
Yeah.
In 1962, I believe, the Peace Corps came to Malawi. And they heard that there was a convent and a hospital with American sisters. At that time, we had an English sister, we had a Scottish sister, we had 2 Canadians and 3 Americans. And so a busload arrived of 40 Peace Corps. And all we had was Kool-Aid. We didn't have any cakes or anything like this to give them. But they were so touched that we had thought of giving them something to drink. Because we had to boil the water, we had everything anyway. So they were so taken up that 5 of them decided they wanted to work at our place. Come and help us. Because we had a big orphanage of 40 children, and we had a general hospital. And so anyway, they came and they built an orphanage for us, because we had the orphans all over. We had no building. And there was an old man there that was 70 years old, the oldest Peace Corps guy from New Jersey. And he was a carpenter, so he started making swings for the kids. He wanted to stay there, but he had some other work to do. But every holidays they had, or every weekend, they'd come. And they'd build all sorts of stuff for the children and the orphanage itself. And then we used to get these big trunks of medications, samples from Canada, from the States. And now these were our medications for the people. So because we could hardly get anything from the government, we had to go buy it. We didn't have much money. So then there was 2 Peace Corps guys that used to teach high school about 5 miles from us. So every chance they had, they came to help us because they had to undo all these samples, bottle them up, say what it was. And there was this young man that was, originally he was from the Philippines. His father was an official with the government, and he'd travel all over the place, Mike. And Mike really got to like me, and I liked him very much because he did a lot of my work in the pharmacy that I couldn't do. I used to go work at night. And so poor Mike, he would have liked to marry me. So anyway, I came home on holidays after my 6 years there. And Mike was on holidays and he came to see me. And who was it? It was at Bernard's. Bernard, he was in St. Francis then. And so he wanted to see the camp because we said, so Bernard came with us and we came to the camp. They really loved it. And he said, this is like little Brigadoon around here. You know the road from Soldier Pond and all this stuff. So then Mike decided maybe he wanted to become a brother since I could marry him. Well, he did go to Jackie's too when Jackie was in, not Hamden, but in New Hampshire there. Anyway, and he had brought his skates and wanted to go skating. So some of the girls had gone with him. But anyway, so Mike went into the Brotherhood for a while, and then he left. It was not his vocation, of course not. But he worked hard. He really worked. They were there for 3 years, and he stayed 6. They could extend in those days. But the Peace Corps were very, very good to us. In fact, I have a book from a lady. Her husband was the leader of the Peace Corps, and she used to come and feed the orphans with another lady to help us. So the Peace Corps were very good to us.
There was a sad story ending to Mike, though. Could you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, Mike, he ended his life in Canada. And he had AIDS, and it was really pathetic. But he went to the hospital of our sisters, and they realized who he was, and he said to thank me, that he really felt that I'd helped him in his life.
So talk to me about what it was like with when you were being a missionary in Africa, in
Mm-hmm.
Malawi, when you were visiting a family, and what the little kids would do when they first saw you as a white person.
Well, the first time I went out, it was families that we knew were very, very poor. And they were afraid of these, they used to call us Zungus, which means white man, because some of them had been mean to them. And so I used to just go and speak to the mom and dad, then little by little they come in and we just sit on the grass, anyway, or wherever. And then I started just playing with them. And then they'd see me coming after a while, and they'd say, my Jeannie, my Jeannie, my Jeannie. That's Sister G, Sister G. And they'd come and they just wanted to hold my hands. And then, of course, they always looked to see if our colors were coming off our hands or something. But they were really sweet. And then, of course, they put everything on their heads, huh? And they would want to teach me how to put something on my head. Well, everything would fall off. A little can or just something to imitate them. So I never succeeded. That's something I never succeeded to do.
Okay. Hang on for a second. Okay. I'd like to talk about your near escapes in Malawi.
Well, it was in the 60s, right before the independence from England. And there were a lot of revolts. And they wanted to get rid of all the Zungus, the white people. I'd gone to bring a patient to the general hospital, which is about 30 miles away. But the roads are, of course, very bad. And I'd passed a little bridge, And I came up before I got into the main road. We're still in the villages. And there were 4 or 5 men there. And they were ready to stone the car. And I just got out and I said, I'm bringing a patient to a hospital. She needs an operation. Would you please let me go through? And I was scared. And I was praying, dear God, I was praying. So I said, oh, it's my Jeanne. Okay, let her go. So I went through. But I tell you, I was a bit shaky. And I got to the hospital, brought the lady there. And then when I came back, they were there waiting so that they made sure I came back to our hospital. And I thought that was very nice. You know, they at least they respected that we were trying to help them. But for them, a white person is a white person. It doesn't matter who it was. And so it scared me. It really scared me. But besides that, I never had any problems. But it's like anywhere else. I think if you're kind to them, if you don't belittle them and, ridicule them or something, they know. They know way down that we're not there to hurt them. We're there to help them. And so our hospital was never touched. We were in the middle of nowhere. And then I think what helped them most to really believe in us is when we go into the villages and do clinics. Because it was hard stuff. 10 miles might take us an hour to get through the rubbles and the dirt and that. But they were always there to help us. So we never had much trouble with them. But there were uprisings. We had to prepare our little bags in case we had to leave. And it was not a nice time.
Now you, when you did leave,
yeah,
was there not another revolution occurring during that time period?
Oh, yes.
Can you talk to us a little about that, your experiences with that?
Well, what happened was...
And tell me when sort of roughly the date that was occurring of the year.
Wait. When did Jackie and Leopold come with the girls? 70s or 80s, yeah.
All right, so in the early 80s.
In the 80s, what happened was they finally got an election for the government, for the president, because the dictator, Kamuzu Banda, he was embezzling everything and he was hurting people and people were just disappearing. So they decided they were going to have, so England came to help and we had real elections. And then when they started counting them, Kamuzu was outed, just out. And then the other guy who was there he seemed to be very, very nice. But then there was a revolt. And in fact, Jackie and Leopold with Denise and Catherine, I believe, they were with me. And we had gone shopping in the big city of Blantyre. This is the big city. And we had just been up and down Main Street and did a bit of shopping with our stuff. And then we heard something was amiss. It was not right. Because they had counted ballots, but they had thrown some away. So people were revolting. We left Blantyre and we went up to Zomba Plateau. And we opened the radio and there was a big revolt. We're exactly where we had been half an hour previously. And I know what it was. The bishops had written a letter. The bishops had written a letter saying how, with all the atrocities that had been happening, and that the people did not deserve this. And it was on Ash Wednesday that all these letters came out, and it was the day after. Well, because what they did, they're not crazy. They took a copy of this, went to the government settlement, and they made millions and millions of these booklets during the night. And then they was just throwing them to everybody to read, that the church was finally going to come and help them to get rid of this president. So you can't imagine. So there was a lot of, it locked up a lot of people. But anyway, we heard of this after, but I said, my God, can you imagine? All I could think was Dick killing me. Everything would happen to his family. But then it lasted for about 2 days. But we were up on the mountains, there was no problem. But they were afraid, very much afraid. And then Denise was leaving the next day. So we had to bring her up to Lilongwe to take the plane. But then everything quieted down. But it was scary. That was scary, yep.
So, what was your decision for finally leaving?
Finally leaving, what happened was we were training young women to become sisters, and they were teachers and nurses. They had all their training. And we figured that we cannot really be in their skin. And they always held us a little bit higher, most of us anyway. And that's not their life. And the way they do it is different from the way we do it.
And which is?
Well, their time does not mean too much to them. And if they come an hour later, or if they, and for us, everything has to be, especially in hospitals. And so it was hard for them. But now they're picking it up and doing the same thing. But now they're only Malawians, and they're doing very well. They're getting vocations, but they're very strict with who comes in, especially with all the AIDS going on out there. They might just want to come in for security, but they're doing very, very well, and we're very proud of them. And I was privileged to go about 2 years ago. 2 years ago. And it was nice to see them. And they're really building up the place, which is nice.
Now, if I remember correctly, was it you that spearheaded the AIDS program out there?
Ooh, yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, we had read in Africa about AIDS coming through here in the States and what they were trying to do, but it was all negative stuff. And of course, we were scared. We knew that something was wrong with our people because we thought it was malaria, and the malaria drugs would not help them, and they were dying, and whole families would just disappear. And so we figured it was AIDS from what we had read. So I came home, and I went to St. Clair's in New York, which is a big AIDS hospital. And in fact, I stayed with Denise, which was in Hoboken. Yeah. And it was very interesting but scary because we didn't have all the drugs. We didn't have anything. So I went back and I thought at least I tried to educate on what this disease was. But I had to do a lot of it in Chichewa, in the language. So I went to the college to get some of the college kids to help me to translate as much as possible. And then I stopped my work in the hospital, and all I did was AIDS education.
Describe to me what it was like with those AIDS patients, because the conditions were different over there as opposed to out here. Could you describe to me what it was like with what you had to do with a lot of the AIDS patients?
Well, we'd go into the villages and we'd try to get the chiefs to bring their people together, and then we'd give them lectures. And what I saw is if a patient had it, within a year they were gone. Because they don't have food, and if they were ostracized,
When you're saying ostracized, how did
they put a mat outside, and that's where the guy lies.
And they just would leave them out there?
They leave them out there.
Did anybody come to feed them?
They didn't have any food to give them. Because usually it was the bread earner that had it. And there was nothing coming into the houses. So this is where we tried, and the government got quite a bit of food, supposedly for them. But they kept it for their army, and they kept it for But I did finally get some rice and beans and stuff, because I told them I would write to the States and tell them not to send anything else, because I was mad. I was so mad. So I did get a few bags, which was very helpful. I'd fix little bags in my car and go out to the villages, and of course it was like a peanut. But we tried to help some families anyway. But they had nothing to give them, medication-wise, nothing. And then the whole family would go, of course. And they're very promiscuous, so what can you do? It spreads like wildfire.
Okay, so...
I would like to speak also about child spacing. child spacing. They can't use any contraceptives there because their health is so precarious that if they take any hormones, you know, like birth control pills or birth control anything, and their bodies are so fragile that, for instance, if they put an IUD in there, I delivered babies with an IUD in their hand, or they would go right through the uterus. They're so frail. And the contraceptive tablets, what happened was, they would just really grow. Their bodies could not absorb it, and and no food. So either they would just become so big, and that's not a Malawian. They're slim, they're nice, and the husbands would just throw them out because their bodies would just, they just within months they would put on 25 pounds, and of course they were starving. They couldn't eat. There was no food. So a lot of them.
And birth control would cause that, right?
Yes, and then a lot of them would hemorrhage. They just could not take it.
Because of malnutrition.
It was too strong, malnutrition. Yeah. So what I did, I had the Billings. The Billings are from Australia, and they discovered this. They were the first ones to start this natural family planning. And natural family planning is really to teach knowledge of their bodies, how they can control and so forth. That's very hard for them, but we started teaching couples that we thought were a little bit more educated, and we taught 20 families, husband and wife. They had to be there together. And what we did, we used the agriculture method. We said, if it doesn't rain, will you grow maize? Will you grow anything? No. Because if there's no rain, there's no growth. So we made posters of what nature does and what the human body does. So, and we described and taught them how to learn about their fertile times, the women. It was very hard for the men because they control the women. But we had 4 families, and then we'd go all in a wide area, that really wanted to do it, and they did beautifully. They picked it up very quickly, and they did that. But then my idea was to go into the villages, get the people in the villages themselves. And I this particular case, many of them, but this particular case, they had 5 children, and he just worked in his garden, and they thought they really wanted to try this. So we taught them, and they were very faithful to come, and they brought 2 other couples with them. And so they were having one every year. So they went for 3 years, perfect. So they became terrific teachers. But then they decided, maybe we can try if it works the other way. And they did. And she came to see me. I'd not seen them for a while. They thought I was going to punish them. Well, I didn't want this. It's their family. So she came and she says, I don't know. She was about 6 months at this point. She had triplets in there. Triplets. So then, well, we took care of them. She delivered and that. But you know what? They were in a remote area, and they did a fabulous job. And they're still doing it. And they said, we're happy because we don't have AIDS, because we just stick together. And I thought that was so good, you know. But and then there was another. The best success of that was some of them could not bear children, supposedly. And once they did that, one of them did it for 2 years, and they got twins. They got twins at their first pregnancy. The men usually don't deal with children, it's the women. But that was so cute. When he came into the maternity to see, and I says, you have a boy and a girl. And he says, how come? He says, they only have 1 baby. No, I said, there are 2. He said, well, I'll take the boy and she can take the girl. So it was cute. It was really, really cute. But the grandmothers used to send their daughters so that they could they could grow and learn better health for themselves. I thought it was very nice.
Okay, now I'm going to change